Today, we're going to tackle one of the biggest geopolitical questions of our time, the competition between the United States and China. But we're going to look at it through a really different lens, one that asks us to step back and question the very foundations of how we think about human progress itself.
This is the question, right? Who's going to come out on top? You have experts building entire careers analyzing it. And, as the source material for this explainer points out, if you guess right, you've got bragging rights for life. It's always framed as this ultimate showdown of ideologies, of economies, but what if that question is the entire problem? Well, the perspective we're digging into today suggests that this whole premise, the very idea of a winner and a loser, is built on a completely flawed foundation. The author puts forward an answer that might feel a little discouraging at first, but stick with it, because it promises to point us toward a much more meaningful path. So to really understand the Sino-US competition, the argument is that we first need to understand where we are as a species. And the core idea here is a pretty radical one, that we are living through what's called humanity's childhood.
So what on earth does that mean? Well, the argument is that all of recorded history, every empire, every revolution, every single thing we've done has happened inside this one developmental phase. Kind of like a child's understanding of the world. Our collective knowledge, especially in things outside of the hard sciences, is seen as fundamentally immature.
And this idea goes even deeper with another concept, the childhood level. The author basically applies this label to all the complex systems we've built to understand ourselves, our political theories, our social sciences, even our religions. Think about those huge ideas like the end of history. The author points to it as a perfect example of a theory that was once super popular, but now it gets picked apart, a product of this childhood level of understanding.
And this, right here, is where the framework completely reframes our most heated debates. From this point of view, arguing about whether democracy is objectively better than autocracy becomes, well, kind of pointless. Why? Because these concepts exist in what the author calls a cognitive level, a space where we actually have no way of knowing if they're objectively true or false. It's almost like two people arguing over the correct way to win a game they just made up on the spot.
Which, of course, brings us to this really provocative question at the heart of it all. If our most profound, most sophisticated political and social theories are just products of humanity's childhood, does that make them, in a way, childish? Now, the point isn't to say that great thinkers were frauds or anything like that. Not at all. It's more about suggesting that the very ground they were standing on is a lot less solid than we all assume.
Now, to help make this pretty abstract philosophy a bit more concrete, the author gives us a really powerful analogy. I want you to forget the image you have of a grand strategic contest between two superpowers. Instead, picture something way more chaotic.
This really illustrates the point perfectly. A real chess game between masters has established rules, a clear objective, to win, and of course, profound strategy. Now, imagine two people who don't even know the rules, just randomly moving pieces around the board. In that scenario, is anyone really winning? The author argues the Sino-US competition is exactly like that, an unstructured brawl, a chaotic scuffle that doesn't even have a real objective. The whole idea of winning or losing just becomes a false proposition. Okay, so if asking who will win is the wrong question, then what is the right one? Well, the author's goal here isn't to pick a winner, but to offer an insight that makes the original question totally irrelevant.
And here's the big insight. By really thinking about these foundational ideas, like humanity's childhood, you start to realize that the competition itself isn't the real problem we need to solve. The answer isn't a reply to the question, it's a transcendence of the question itself. It's about moving past it entirely.
So this brings us to the really constructive part of the whole argument. If we stop pouring all our energy into this pointless brawl, where should we focus it instead? The author proposes a task that's described as nothing less than momentous and totally unprecedented in human history.
So the author presents two core directions for us. On a personal level, it's about looking inward, self-cultivation, and outward, benefiting others. But on a societal level, the mission is so much bigger. It's literally about leading humanity out of its childhood phase. And the ultimate goal here is existential, to make sure our species finally grows up before it self-destructs with all its childish but incredibly powerful toys.
And we end on this final, really striking thought. From this incredibly vast perspective, the issues that dominate our headlines every single day, even the great geopolitical struggle between the US and China, are all just minor matters. They're seen as distractions from the real epoch-defining work that has to be done.
The question this leaves us with isn't who will win the current game, but whether we can, all of us, collectively decide to learn the rules and start playing a completely different one.